Hi everybody, welcome to Chapter 8 of Money in Schools. We're going to be looking at activity funds today, which as you know is probably one of the more important concepts that we're going to be speaking about in class. So as normal, I present to you the chapter drivers, kind of looking at the role of student activities, what are student activity funds, what are district activity funds, what has to happen in terms of receipt, sales tax, and petty cash, and how do you budget for student activities. According to our program accreditation, this is probably one of the most important concepts that we're going to cover. This is what your actual assessment in this course is on, and because of that, this is something that you're getting multiple perspectives. This is the Money in Schools perspective. You'll get the Oklahoma perspective, and you also get the Principal's Guide to School Budgeting perspective. It's important that you see both sides of it, and you kind of understand the perspective that each of the authors are taking. Money in Schools is going to be a little more, I would say, holistic, because remember, it's looking at both perspectives. It's looking at district and it's looking at building level as well. The thing that I want you to take away from this lecture is kind of the idea that you will have autonomy over this as a new principal, but not as much, because central administration is still going to be making decisions related to this as well. So that could create a challenge and a problem as you're developing your program. But my guess is when you're given responsibilities, activity funds will be the first thing that you're really responsible for doing. So I think this material is important, and I think this material is relevant as well. So activities are the lifeblood of schools. I argue that basically students remember the activities they participated in, not necessarily the teachers and in the subject matter they learned, but they remember the interactions they had with the teachers that were sponsoring their activities, extracurriculars, or athletics, and that's where their positive experiences from school come from. You have the responsibility to provide those positive experiences to the students to let them be successful, and that also increases community involvement and community understanding as well. So student activities are there and they exist to provide positive experiences for children. In theory, this should help a child develop and discover their own individuality and who they are as a person. You want the student activities to be the thing that helps the child advance to when they know what they want to do for a living in pre-college, post-college, but those activities are going to help them really develop who they are as a person. This is one of the ways the public looks at schools in a positive way. As we've said before in this course, the public does not look at schools positively. The public looks at schools incredibly, incredibly negatively. Activities is an area that most of the public will say, well, the school at least has a good marching band, or the school at least has a good basketball team. So most of the time, I'd say the majority of the time, activities are presented in a positive light, so you have to keep that in mind. I'm telling you this, and I have it as a bullet on the slide, but I want to be realistic. I don't want to be, I don't want to be fake when I'm saying this, but the truth is, the most important student activity in a district is band, and the most important athletic activity in a district is football. It is the lifeblood of the school. It's what provides additional money, additional fund, and additional support. And as a building principal, you have to realize that band and football are going to be what drives your community members. It's going to drive the people that are in your district, and it's going to be what people talk about. Obviously, there are exceptions. Your district might have one of the world's best or state's best baseball teams or basketball teams. In that case, you would say, well, that program's the lifeblood of the district. You might have a district that has a huge chapter of Future Business Leaders of America or DECA. Then that might be what really drives the district. But on average, most districts, it's band and football, and that's what people care about, and it's what's going to be bringing in money to schools. So budgeting for activities is similar and dissimilar to other activities within a district. Each one of them is going to have their own fundraising techniques, and each one of them is going to have their own challenges. Most of the things that you're going to look at related to this is sort of how they tie into fundraising, because one of your responsibilities as a building principal is to make sure that there's transparency and there's no overlapping. The fundraising has to be done so that what one organization is doing to raise money is different than the other organization is doing to raise money, and you have to prioritize your higher prevalent activities to make sure they get the better fundraising opportunities. It's just the way it is. Is that fair for some of your smaller organizations? Well, it might not be, but in theory, this is what's going to make those organizations stronger, is the fact that the fundraising activities support the larger organizations, which increases the role in the community, which increases the amount of money coming in the district, and the less expenditures that you as a building principal have to allocate for those activities. Fraud is more common in school activities. More hands are on the money. You have people collecting tickets, you have people selling concessions, you have people buying shirts and things like that. This might not be readily foreseeable, but there is more chance of fraud as well. So let me give you a couple activities, some definitions of activity funds. Activity funds are legal entities created by statute in most states for the sole purpose of segregating money in support of student activities. All that this means is that the money is being kept separate from other expenditures, specifically to go to student activities. The state level will say that they exist outside of the curriculum. They're going to be housed at the school level. The building principal has to manage these funds, operate with what they have, and use the money in a way that makes the activity stronger and allocates the money appropriately. So student activity funds are ones where the students own the organization. This is normally when the students are involved in the organization, but they're also involved in the management as well. This is religious organizations and booster clubs, which could cause problems within the relationship with the school. But as we've looked at when we've talked about Oklahoma as a state, we are in a state where the school board can dictate how a building is used, what it's used for, and who's permitted to meet there. So if there are student activities, the school building and the district level can determine whether or not you can use it for those organizations and activities to meet. So please try to keep that in mind as well. So district activity funds are simple. These are ones that are managed at the district level. This one, whether it's a site-based activities fund or district-based, really shows you how the money is spent, but I want to note, these are going to be things like an after-school tutoring program, a Title I programming, a summer school, that are done across buildings. The district will manage it if, let's say, the after-school program is done in 4 of the 7 elementary buildings. Well, each building principal won't have their own budget. The district will present an overarching one, and then it'll funnel down into 4 strands at the building level. So if the activity goes over the scope of the district, it's considered to be a district activity fund. So there have to be controls in place. We're going to talk about controls a lot more when we look specifically at the context of the state of Oklahoma. But you have to know that many exist at both levels. And administrators can be disciplined for activity funds more than anything else, because it's the one where an administrator is most likely to make a mistake. So the school superintendent normally determines who's responsible for the activity fund. Most districts, the school board has a board treasurer who manages, oversees, and controls the activity funds, meaning that all the receipts that the building principal collects, all the deposits they make, and all the budget statements they prepare, it's up to the school board treasurer to be the one that can handle the responsibility of the funds. Who is the school board treasurer? Sometimes it's a district appointed employee, sometimes it's somebody on the school board who acts in that role. That really depends district to district and state to state. The state that I'm coming from, we found it both ways. Some districts had it as a board member, and some districts had it as a district employee. Then that treasurer will look at the money, go back to the school level, which is your level, and then they'll have the principal handle what they need to handle related to it. So I'm going to give you some suggested fund policies, and we'll talk about these that are general, and then when we look at Oklahoma, we'll look at ones that are more Oklahoma specific. So you can read all of these on your own. They're directly in our textbook, but I'll present them and you can see them on the slides that you have. So let's talk about some of these that I think are a little important that you should probably know. Bookkeeping errors can be mistakes. All three of these textbooks are going to present bookkeeping errors as faults of people. I think the Principal's Guide to School Budgeting is going to basically look at this from a fraud perspective. This one is going to look at it from too many hands in the cookie jar type of thing. And then the Oklahoma one is going to look at it more from a legal responsibilities and entitlement perspective. But you need to know that bookkeeping errors happen inadvertently. Somebody could make a mistake with money. The way that you avoid this is through being transparent and having dual accountability, meaning that two people are involved in the cash controls. They're looking at all receipts and disbursements, and you at least have one other person besides you as the building principal that's in charge of this. Our book suggests do an audit at the end of every week or the end of every other week. The other textbook says an audit must be done once a month. I'm going to say that's entirely up to the decision of the school district, the way that they want to do it, but that will help you with consistency as well. So we give you some tasks to segregate duties. I had mentioned all of these already, but we'll briefly discuss them. The first one is that there should be somebody separate signing the checks besides the bookkeeper. I agree. And they have to be there to ensure that even if somebody else is preparing the check, somebody else can look at the check to make sure it was prepared appropriately and there weren't mistakes. The principal should be the primary signature on everything. But you should always have two signatures as well, meaning that other person that you have in charge of the activity fund should sign as well. And then somebody other than the bookkeeper should reconcile the bank statement when possible. So we'll give you the 11 internal controls on cash. Once again, this is easily and clearly presented in the textbook, but I'll give you a few minutes to read and look at it as well. So, disbursement, when you're actually using your money and making purchases, it's imperative that these are things that are done where the activity sponsor is involved in the purchase, but the building principal also should approve it. If you have pre-numbered checks, that certainly makes things easier. I want to focus on the fourth bullet on this list. You need to show who requested the purchase, what it was used for, the amount, and the check number. That's another important thing because you have to make sure that the money spent on activity funds are actually being spent on the activity and spent on students. So in theory, the item purchased and who requested the purchase is important because you as the building principal have to make sure that that was something that was done to benefit students. So the final main idea is these couple of statements. Be careful when handling money, spend only for its intended purposes, and if you can use fund accounting to keep the money separate, that helps you in handling and spending only what it is intended for. So a couple of other thoughts. Non-activity funds. These are separate. If you have lab fees that are associated with AP courses, if you are employed in a district where they actually pay for your AP tests, where I'm from, I worked in a district where they did, and I worked in a district where they didn't. They had a separate non-activity fund that was part of it that basically said that the school district budget would pay for an attempt on an AP course and for computer fees related to those tests as well. For the Microsoft Office certification, the district would actually pay for that. So that was a non-activity fund that was used as well. So fee funds, these are things that are owned by the school district at the district level. Basically, the school just collects receipts for convenience reasons. If you basically, if you damaged an instrument in orchestra class, or you're needed to improve on an instrument you're using. That's a school district owned property, and then they'll do the disbursement. The same could be said with anything related to art or additional labs that have to be created to prepare students for the AP exam as well. So, sales tax, most schools basically decide, they're a collection point, and then they remit the sales tax to another level. Different states have different laws. For our state, one of the things that you're going to see is that almost everything is tax exempt, but other states it's not the case. It's something where they have to bill it to the school anyway, collect the tax, and then the district remits it, and then the district gets it reimbursed. You're going to find most of the activities in the state of Oklahoma are tax exempt in the beginning. So, petty cash, we're going to talk a little bit about petty cash accounts when we look at the Principal's Guide to School Budgeting, but these are the small amounts of money that's kept on hand that allows you to essentially have things that you need for stamps, maybe food purchases, anything that's a minor expense in the school that doesn't have to go through a superintendent. So there is an activity fund report on page 262 of the textbook. If you have to design one of your own, you can look at this and you can use it, but that's certainly not something that I'm requiring of our course. So that's it for this chapter. This is the main, we're going to look at infrastructure in public schools and public school facilities next, which is the big idea in the doctoral class. But for this class, I'm just going to provide you an overview with it. If you need anything else, please let me know. Thank you.